Thanks for listening to the Free For All After Party from Fox 4. The best news, sports, and weather is available anytime at fox4news.com. Now, enjoy the show. Well, hello, everyone. It is, I thought you were just about to take your shoes and socks off. Mike is getting real comfy here.
No. Just trying to reconfigure myself here. Sorry.
This is Free For All After Party, the podcast. Sammy the G, MFD. Interpret that how you will. We're happy to be here with you on this Sunday night. Kind of Sunday late night confessionals, Mike, don't you think?
Oh, I don't know if I'd go that far, Sam, but it ended up being a fun Sunday night. You know, we talk about once football ends, how are we going to, it changes kind of our entire dynamic for what we do on TV. So it's cool when you've got a big Sunday matchup with the Mavs and Golden State, and then when it ends up happening the way it did, with a huge comeback for Dallas and a game nobody ever could have imagined turning that way. So that's pretty neat.
Yeah, I will say I called that. I tweeted out that this just isn't the Mavs night, and how many more times are they going to turn the ball over? Because we've seen when they're in situations like this, in games like this against elite teams such as Golden State, I mean, this was a very rare kind of comeback that does not happen often for the Mavs. That was their 15th 20-point comeback in franchise history. So if that doesn't show you how rare that is, but they just turned it on and they switched gears. I mean, this was a completely different team in the fourth quarter compared to the first half.
Yeah, they've had as many double-digit comeback wins as any team in the NBA this year. And none of them was more unlikely than this one on Sunday night because, they're down 21 at one point, 19 in the fourth quarter. Like you said, turning it over every time down the court, it seemed 18 turnovers for the game. Luka had 1 assist and 9 turnovers entering the fourth. And then when you can win a game with him being on the bench for most of the second half, really, or during the comeback anyway, during the comeback portion, that's pretty encouraging for the Mavs. I mean, they got a long way to go, and I don't know if Dinwiddie ultimately is going to be the running mate that Luka needs, but
for now,
Sunday night he was.
Yeah, and I think it just says a lot about Jason Kidd's trust in this team when Luka isn't on the floor. I was saying that on TV last night that, everyone was wondering, how is this KP trade going to fare? And Brian Damaris of Bally Sports and the Ticket said, well, this team now has playmakers. Spencer Dinwiddie is one of those guys. Back-to-back games now, he scored 20-plus points. Bertans, I think, finished with 7. But like you said, in games like this where it comes down to, a couple of possessions, they need those extra points from guys like Bertans, too. So to me, and listening to him in the postgame, Mike, I'm talking about Dinwiddie, you can really tell how high his basketball IQ is. And they need a guy like that, too. But to me, these are the kinds of games that they need to put together. And I'm not going to go as far to say big picture from the Mavs that they're going to get out of the first round. I do think that they can, but this all depends on matchups and who they end up, pairing up with in that first round. But if they can put together consistency, which is something that this team has lacked, then I think, you got to be hot entering the postseason. So time will tell.
Yeah, they obviously have to be more careful with the ball than they were on Sunday night. And they need Luka to have a more efficient game than he did on Sunday night. But I think what was really impressive about Luka was this was the kind of game that maybe, I don't know, other times in his career, he's only just turned 23. It's Monday, he turns 23. He's so young. But it's the kind of game that just would have driven him to distraction to the point that he wouldn't have been able to recover from it. Yeah. You know what I mean? He had his 13th technical of the season. He was having trouble, like I said, with turnovers. He wasn't shooting it that poorly, but Kidd kept him on the bench, came in at the 5:30 mark of the fourth, and you mentioned this, you observed this, that he deferred to his teammates. His basketball IQ is so high, and he stayed calm to the point where you could tell was thinking, all right, these guys have engineered this comeback. Let's not interrupt the flow here. But then he made some important shots and made practically all of his free throws, which doesn't always happen late in games. So it was impressive by Luka when they really needed it most. So one of those rare comebacks at Golden State to come back from 20 plus down, that just doesn't happen.
Yeah, and by the way, the Warriors don't lose at home either. They have the best home record in the NBA. The Dallas Mavs just handed them their 7th home loss of the season, and the Warriors are also the best defensive team in the league, and the Mavs have one of them, along with the Mavs too. But the first half, the Mavs just weren't playing their best basketball based on this new identity that Jason Kidd has created. But yeah, it's one game. They got to move on. They got the Lakers coming up. So, it's going to be interesting to see, but definitely entertaining. And I think that, and again, big picture, I think Jason Kidd has done some good. I think we're finally starting to see, we were wondering, how is this Mavs team going to look? They were dealing with injuries. Luka was out with some COVID, all of that kind of thing. And I know people will say, too, well, Klay Thompson didn't play. Well, the Mavs don't have Tim Hardaway Jr., which is one of their best players on this team.
Good point.
So, when guys are down, you have to have others step up. And the best way for the new additions like Bertans and Dinwiddie to get into a flow, Luka has to be able to trust them. Because if they had lost that game, Mike, we were going to talk all about the turnover problems.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
No, and Kidd, to me, the difference he's made is one of them is obvious, the way they defend most nights. And the other is the way he relates so far to Luka. And, there was always this underlying tension between Carlisle and Luka. And I think there's no substitute sometimes, and I hate this argument at other times to say that a guy has to be a great player, has to be a significant player for that to translate into coaching or broadcasting. But, but to have somebody like Kidd who did so many of the things so well that Luka wants to do well, as a distributor and as a defender, if he wants to improve his game, it just gives him automatic credibility. I didn't hear after the game what he said he got that technical, and then he went right over and talked to Kidd and sort of put his hands on Kidd's shoulders and got up right close to him.
You never would have seen that with Carlisle.
No, and I would just like to know what was going on there. If he was like pleading his case, because look, I know I'm only 3 away from being suspended for a game, but he had this one coming. He got this one wrong. No, and Luka, he was saying, look, I was right and the ref was wrong on this. But yeah, it's a different type of relationship, and a lot can change as the season goes on. But right now, it seems pretty healthy.
Well, and you bring up their relationship, and I want to pivot to a very big guy, big celebrity that was in town last week, Mr. Shaquille O'Neal. He was a guest speaker at a luncheon for the St. Philip's School and Community Center, and former Mavs coach Avery Johnson was also there. And we'll talk a little bit more about it in a minute. But we got to interview Shaq and Avery Johnson before the luncheon began. Avery Johnson was moderating this discussion, which was just great. I mean, there were so many laughs, so many great stories exchanged between the two, because Avery Johnson was coaching the Mavs during that 2006 NBA title run there. They lost 4-2, something like that. So they had some fun with that. But Avery Johnson was asked about the job Jason Kidd has done, with this team. And he noted how important the relationship between the head coach and the best player on the team is, along with the owner, Mark Cuban, and I thought that was interesting. While he didn't mention it, it goes back to what we've talked about, which there's always been this underlying tension with Rick Carlisle in terms of how he related to Luka. And it's clear, body language says a lot, Mike. And to your point there, with Luka going over to Kidd we would never have seen that with Rick Carlisle. So I thought that was interesting how he talked about that. And he also said how Luka just has to be himself. And Shaq was saying that, it was funny because he was like, he's a handsome guy, isn't he? He's good looking, essentially. So a man giving a man a compliment is nice, which you do from time to time. You're not afraid to admit when men are good looking.
I'm not above that. No, I just think it's really telling how the greatest players value Luka. LeBron, for the that's the case in point, how he always picks him for his team in the All-Star game. LeBron, the greatest compliment LeBron can give anybody is to say that the player reminds him of LeBron. You know what I mean?
For sure.
And LeBron will say that. His game reminds me of mine. As you said, the Shaqs of the world. And you see it on TNT when those guys are doing their studio show too. Just the automatic respect given to Luka. And I think sometimes his skills are such that we almost see him too often to where we take some of this stuff for granted. And you know, we watch the games together all the time in here, and I get down on Luka for complaining too much about the officials and just frankly I get on him sometimes for being too unselfish, because he'll take all that punishment in the lane and get it right to the cup and then kick it out, you know, to somebody in the corner to try to shoot a three. And I know that's today's NBA, and I know I'm old and all that, but I'm like, just finish.
Yeah, you definitely got to pick your spots.
You get fouled, you get a 3-point play anyway. But he's truly special.
He is.
And he is really, really special, and a guy that, you know, has done more than just about any player has done at age 23.
Well, and you know he's special when we're even saying about the game against the Warriors that it was not his best night, you know, because he can make all of his flaws disappear, especially when, you know, they ushered this big comeback. But yeah, I mean, he's young. He's entering his Jordan year, 23. Yeah. So, yeah, in terms of Shaq, though, I want to bring it up because I always knew, Mike, that he was a philanthropist, an entrepreneur. I always knew how much he gave back, but I didn't realize to what extent. I mean, he came to Dallas, and there was this family that had 10 kids, I believe, and I don't know if he saw them on Instagram. It was something that happened on social media, and he saw that they needed a new car because their van was really just needed to go, basically. And so he took them to the dealership and bought the family a new car. And I just thought, and he does that kind of stuff all the time, and he's done it since really, you know, he became Shaquille O'Neal, Shaq, you know. I mean, he's been doing this kind of thing since the 90s. And, you know, he was telling stories during this luncheon, and one of the things that stuck out to me, because, you know, he endorses a lot of products, but one thing about him is he says he never endorses a product that he doesn't truly like or believe in. Icy Hot is one of them. He told this great story where Wheaties called after, you know, he won his first title, right? And he's like, man, I have to tell you, he's like, I don't like Wheaties. You know, he's like, I would rather have like Fruit Loops or Corn Pops, something like that, because he didn't grow up eating that. Yeah. Now, eventually, he did get on the box with, you know, Kobe Bryant or whatever. But then he made a joke saying, you know, can we get some Frosted Flakes? And so he developed a relationship with them. But I just thought it was so interesting to, you know, he's from San Antonio, all those kinds of things. He didn't go to a big school or anything like that. But, you know, he's in the position where he can give back a lot, but not all guys in his position do. So I think it says a lot about him that fundraiser raised $1.2 million for the St. Philip's School and Community Center. And, you know, you could just tell that he genuinely appreciated being there and called up some of the kids on the stage to ask him questions. I don't know, he's one of one. He's a rare breed.
He is. And there's just it's hard to quantify, you know, what makes a guy likable as a celebrity, but he has that. And he's really just maybe top 10 still as just a recognizable sports figure in this country.
We talk about that all the time, right?
Yeah, like who has the Q rating, as you'd call it. You know, Shaq is up there in part because of his size. I got to get a drink of water. Stand by. Yeah, but he is one of a kind, and I know he wasn't real popular around here after '06, but he's really funny on TV and has a good time on that show and fits right in. And it was a great event that day.
It really was. You need more. Mike needs more water. Get the coughs out. Slurp down your Mountain Dew from 7-Eleven, which Lent is coming up. Right? Lent is coming up, right?
Lent is coming up, yes.
So you're giving up what?
I'm going to give up pop, as we call it in the Midwest.
I am not.
I shouldn't. You're a big Diet Coke girl.
I don't really give things up like that because I'm just like, I don't know. I'm not saying it's not a good thing, but if we're going to are we going to do it for the long haul type thing? I don't know. I mean, it's good if you give things up. I just don't know that I can.
I just need to reset in terms of sweets and stuff. I've gotten totally out of hand. And I think I can go cold turkey on it, you know, for 40 days or whatever land is. And so I think that'll help me. But, you know, looking at Shaq, he's not given a lot up in terms of the diet. You know, he's a large individual.
He loves him some chicken fried steak. He referenced Babes in Frisco, which have you ever been? I've never
Babes,
been.
There's one in Carrollton where I live.
Is it
it's
good?
Fantastic. Yeah, it's like family style, you know. Oh, you'd love it. It's chicken fried steak, fried chicken, great mashed potatoes and gravy.
I've never had chicken fried steak, by the way.
It's
ever
good.
In life. It
really is. In the Midwest, we used to call it like a tenderloin, like a pork tenderloin. Yeah. So maybe different places you've lived, it's been called that. But it's just breaded goodness.
Maybe I should dabble
is
in
what
that
it is.
as we talk about trying to eat and drink better things. And
but no, the Shaq thing was great that day, and I know you had a fun day being out there.
Corby Davidson of the Ticket, he got to do a little rapid fire 10 questions with Shaq. If you guys haven't heard that interview, go to the Ticket's website and listen to it.
Just if you're P1s, you've heard it. But the first question to Shaq was a hypothetical that if he had a grenade lodged somewhere and the only way to get it out before exploding was for one of his co-anchors on the TNT set to...
And you know which one we're talking about.
Dive
Chuck.
in and get it in the most crass way imaginable, would he allow that to happen? So put two and two together there. And
he would. He did. He said he would allow it to happen. And I'm like, and Bob Sturm commented, goes, that was the first question?
Exactly. Where do you go
And I was even like, where is this interview going? But what I found so hilarious is that you told me this, Mike, but I didn't realize that he and Shaq have had a relationship for a long time. So that's what's great about Shaq is he like went with the whole thing.
Yeah.
He just went right along with the whole thing. So
no, he had a lot of fun with it, but it was a cool day, just with, like you say, a kind of a pop culture icon. The guy goes beyond sports, and he can come in and I wanted to mention the Brad Townsend thing too from the morning news.
Yes.
And we ran on TV that night the fact that the McDonald's All-American jacket had been lost somehow along the way, or he hadn't gotten it in high school. And so they presented him with that. And he seemed really touched by that. Yep. And then Brad Townsend from the Morning News was writing for a San Antonio paper back when Shaq was in high school. And Brad had written, this was actually before high school, an article that he thinks was probably the first newspaper article ever written about Shaq, when I think maybe he was in junior high, only 6'8" or something, but was just starting to have his game come into shape, and people were starting to kind of recognize him a little bit. And you could tell Shaq was genuinely touched by that as well.
I think these types of moments, too, especially for stars like that, they're really full circle moments because you realize how many have been with you from the beginning. And he talked about how the advice that he would give to younger kids is, listen to your mom and your dad. That's one of the biggest things because, he said his hero was his mom and how, she really pushed him and that sort of thing. And so it was just cool. It was one of those events. I haven't really been to something like that. I know you've covered a lot of things in your career too, but to see someone just in a little bit of a different light and really let their guard down and share stories that have really impacted them throughout their life was really neat. But we, Mike, are going to hit a break, and then we're going to talk about the big story going on right now that is much bigger than sports and get into that a little bit.
They start their morning before the sun rises and end hours after dawn. 6 straight hours of weather and traffic. Why? To make sure you have a good day. Evan and Chip, here for you. Good Day, 4 to 10 a.m. on Fox 4. Whether you're born here or just got here, here's some news. In fact, more news than anyone in town. Always local, just like you. So welcome, locals. Your news is here.
Welcome back, Free for All After Party.
Tell the people how we're sitting,
Sam
like the dynamic.
Gannon. I still need to figure out a better way to sit. Mike Ducey here. Sam is in her normal office chair, just as comfortable as can be, feet up on another chair. I have wheeled over slightly to her side of the office, and I'm just sitting here very awkwardly with my knees out.
You're at the corner of the table with your legs like open up against the table.
Well, I can't.
Yeah, there's nowhere. Yeah, you can't go anywhere.
Well, I probably could. Well, that is a little better, actually.
Yeah, there you go.
No, but we're here. We're here in our little sports cave.
We like it.
After hours on Sunday night, and we worked from home a couple of days this past week because of the ice storm. And one of those days was the day that the Russian invasion took place in the Ukraine. We were home that day, right?
Yeah, we were home.
And you mentioned. You saw, I think, a tweet reminded you of this or brought this to mind. It might have been Jane Slater, actually, from NFL
posted,
Network.
yes.
Just kind of talked about the randomness of social media right now, and that you can be following Instagram or Twitter, a feed, and one person, no fault of their own, is just talking about stuff they would normally be talking about.
Yeah.
Somebody's talking about fashion or sports.
Or sports.
And then other people are talking about the most serious real world issue imaginable, and that is the life and death occurrences going on in Ukraine right now. And so it sounds trite, it sounds like a cliche to say this at this time, but it does kind of put things in perspective. It feels weird, frankly. And it felt weird from home those nights to be talking about sports, to be doing a sports segment when you knew all of this was going on. Frankly, I think it seemed weird to be doing weather coverage when that was going on. And I'm sure it felt weird to the people doing it, too, because this thing is just...
It's so sad.
It's huge. And it's, it's happening in a place where we just haven't seen this type of activity since World War II. So, and it's, the sports world is slightly affected. Jeff did a story on Sunday night, kind of, I thought, that encapsulated it well, and talked about how the boxing champions are one of the guys is the mayor of the major city in Ukraine, and there are other people over here, Bertrand, the Maverick, who's from a neighboring nation to Ukraine, and you've got Ovechkin, the great hockey player who's from Russia and trying to walk that was fine line.
That was an awkward and very uncomfortable answer that he gave if basically he was asked if he still supported Putin and everything.
So it feels a little weird, frankly, to even be doing it in this kind of setting. I don't know how you feel, but I think it's just something that's so significant right now that you have to address it. You have to talk about it, a little bit. And I don't like it when people who haven't researched it in the least suddenly have strong opinions about it. I on Instagram had copied something that somebody else put out there about how it's funny how in 2020 suddenly everybody was an expert on COVID, and now everybody's an expert in Russian studies as well. People suddenly know everything about everything, and I don't pretend to, but it does sort of refocus us maybe in ways that we need to be refocused when we look at something like this happening, and we just can't imagine it happening to us, but it's affecting so many people.
No, and it definitely changes, and overall, it's sad that when bad things happen, it forces us in a way or it opens us up to think about things from a different perspective. But unfortunately, that's generally how life goes. When bad things happen to you or your loved ones or people that you're hit with it differently. And then you start to reflect, and I can't even imagine being over in Ukraine right now, like fearing for my life. You saw, and for us and what we do, and I think what I really respect in situation, and you had a tweet about this, Mike, about journalism right now is more important than ever when you're talking about something like this. You need to see these reporters, and it doesn't matter, whether you watch Fox, CNN, any of these things. There are strong reporters at every network, and they too are putting their lives in danger. And you see them in the subway. CNN's chief international correspondent Clarissa Ward is watching her. I don't know that I'd ever really seen her before. I didn't realize she was the chief correspondent, and I was watching her Wednesday and Thursday night, and I just thought she is doing an incredible job. And I know she's been doing this for years, but she just was very smooth in the way that she was just breaking everything down, and I think that really takes a talent to be able to do that and to deliver it in a way that's calming to the viewer on the other side, because she's not one of those, everyone has the people that they like, but she delivers it in a way that you're very interested and even more intrigued in what she has to say. And for me, that's what I appreciate, is all of these reporters and telling these stories that, because they're out there, they're able to find.
No, and when you do what we do for a living, I think maybe you appreciate in a kind of a special way what these folks are doing. And I did tweet that I'm in awe of how they're able to tell these stories. We had a reporter named Sarah Seidner who was here probably going on 20 years ago now, and she went to CNN and is still with CNN. And I don't think she's reporting in this particular situation, but she's been in similar ones before. And just to see her out there was just so impressive. I think their depth of knowledge comes out, and how smart they are, and how, and there are exceptions to every rule. I know that, folks, before you tweet at me. But I think for the most part, and they have producers there.
Field
they have
producers, yes.
Photographers who are putting themselves in harm's way, obviously. So it's a team effort, but I think it is the most important type of broadcast journalism that you can possibly imagine, what's being done over there right now. My prayer is that it won't have to be done much longer, and that the right result will come out of this.
Yeah, I'm thinking about everyone in Ukraine right now for sure, and hopefully this comes to an end sooner rather than later. Before we go, Mike, to end things on a more sportsy note, the other big news that dropped last week involved Hall of Famer Troy Aikman, reportedly leaving Fox to join ESPN's Monday Night Football. How shocked were you on a scale of 1 to 10?
And who knows, by the time that you, dear listener, are hearing this, maybe Troy will have stayed with Fox.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we're hoping, because it's been great to have him on the old Fox team for all these years, 20 years, 19 with Joe Buck. I guess the reports were out there for so long that Amazon was interested in him for Thursday night, so I thought that might be where he would go, but then maybe do both. So Monday Night Football did surprise me, but they're going to have the ability, I was reading with the new contract, maybe, I don't know if it's new or not, I think it is, to flex more games on Monday night too, so they'll get a better schedule potentially. I don't know. I've known Troy for a long time, and I hope that he does what he wants to do and can have fun with it, and continue to market that light beer that's tasty and very good.
Which we both had, by the way.
Yes.
Go drink it. It's called 8.
Yeah, we're going to be with Troy and Roger Staubach on Monday at a special charity event, and Troy has another event coming up on Tuesday. So maybe we'll know something more later.
Yeah.
Later in the week, but it's hard to imagine Buck doing the games with anybody else, or Troy doing the games with anybody
Can you
else.
imagine if Joe Buck somehow went to ESPN? I'm not saying that would ever happen, but can you imagine? I would love to see Al Michaels and Troy. I think that would be a great pairing. Wherever this lands, whatever is the final result of all of this, I think he's an extremely talented broadcaster, and there's always comparisons made between he and Tony Romo, who have two completely different styles. I like Tony Romo a lot too. They're both completely different, and I know some people are big Romo fans, some are big Aikman fans, and some crisscross with them both. But
let's just say I'm glad Troy's been on Fox for the last 20 years. I'll leave it at that, and I hope against hope that it will continue. But we wish him we wish him the best, and it's hard to blame somebody for enjoying the experience of being a free agent. It doesn't come along that often, from what I've heard.
He's soaking it in, so there you go. And listen, we're almost at the 30-minute mark. We're going to take off and get some shut-eye, some beauty sleep, as they call it. Mike,
We've been reminiscing a lot tonight, haven't we?
Yeah.
Good morning, yesterday.
You wake up.
And time has slipped away. Oh, I think that's probably enough. For Sammy the G, this is MFD. Good night, everybody.